Hello everyone, karibuni leo. We have Mr. Fred Wekesa Kusienya, who is a teacher of music, a performer of music, and a lecturer of music at the Kabarak SMPA, that is the School of Music and Performing Arts. We are going to have a discussion surrounding his method, his popular guitar method. He's a very good guitarist, a performer, and teacher. And we're going to have a discussion on how he's gotten to who he is and where he is, and the experiences that have affected and influenced his skills and his knowledge. Karibuni. Mr. Fred Wekesa Kusienya.
Okay, thank you. As you have rightly put it, my name is Fred Wekesa Kusienya, and maybe it's important for me to mention something about my names.
Oh, yeah.
Because in my background, I'm a Bukusu, and the names carry meanings.
Oh.
Wekesa means harvesting. I was born during the harvesting season. And that is between September and December. I'm a son of Kusienya. Kusienya has two meanings. Pride. Yes, my dad was a very proud guy. But again, the state of not being satisfied with something. You have to keep, looking for it, for more and more.
Is that a positive trait?
Culturally it is. Maybe in a different context, somebody may look at it as negative.
Okay.
But as a person, I'm very, very proud of it. Even when you don't refer to me as Kusienya, sometimes I feel like you have not addressed me well. Exactly.
Good to know.
Yeah. So I've been a musician for quite a while now, ever since I was a young boy. I cannot really say when exactly this began, but my mother keeps on telling me that while I was about 6 or so years, I began playing with the instrument, and trying to sing. Little did I know that it was a talent trying to manifest from both my maternal side and the paternal side. Exactly.
Both musicians.
Yeah, my dad, I was told far much later that he used to be a choir teacher. Far much later.
Okay.
But it was my maternal uncle who used to be a guitarist in the early 1940s.
Ooh.
So as a young boy, when I began doing this, that is in the early 1980s, around 1984-5 is when I got exposed to an acoustic guitar that was locally made. It was very fun, very crude, but we were very excited looking at it from a local artist. That guy, I remember his name, was called Adachi. Adachi was from Maragoli. So just through observation, I even migrated from my church. Having been raised in Quaker church, the philosophy in that church was that they believed in silent worship. You are not supposed to move. You are just supposed to sing, not clap, not use any instruments. But I felt there was something in me that was not giving me peace. So I had to cross. I sneaked, let me be honest. I just sneaked to that church. It was Pentecost. We used to refer to as Pentecote. Just to go and look at how this guy was doing this guitar. But it was good. He was kind enough and said, looking at me as a young boy, he brought me close and said, shika hapa, and I didn't understand what shikering here and there meant.
We're looking at an age of between 6 and 10 there.
That is it, actually 6 and 10.
6 and 10, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. But then he told me if you want to grow, you need to have your own guitar. But then as a young boy with around 6-10 years, where do I get the resources to buy guitar? I decided to go and take my mother's kichungi and removed the wire mesh and again cut one of his jerry cans and made my own guitar. Now, I thought I was being innovative. I didn't know my mother would discover. But when she came, she reprimanded me for doing that. But the reprimanding was a bit mild. But when my dad discovered this, he literally picked that guitar of mine and threw it in the pit latrine. I went and reported the case to my aunt, now his sister. It is that aunt who told me that, remember what? Your dad was a choir trainer. It was at that point that I discovered that this guy was a musician and he had hidden this fact from us as children. Because by the time I'm discovering my father, he was working in the agricultural whatever sector. I didn't know he had a musical background.
Before we actually move, why do you think that could have been, why would he have hidden that from his children or his family? His musical life.
You are right. Thank you. From what I gathered later on, it is because of the history that the former musicians, popular musicians in the history of Kenya, were very promiscuous people. There wasn't anything good that would be associated with them. So most parents who were perceived to be educated and had a focus in life kept on discouraging their children from becoming musicians, because musicians were not known. Were known for bad things in the society. They were not going to school. They loved leisure, promiscuity. They had no focus in life. And many of them died before their perceived, lifespan. So my dad felt like, no, this cannot be the direction my son will take. Yes.
In the same breath,
Yes.
was this just unique to popular music or popular musician, or were there other music? Because I would understand in a community,
Yes.
there are so many types of music that exist. So were these perceptions just limited to the popular musicians and popular music, or did they apply to all the musics that existed within that community?
At that particular time, it only applied to popular music because it was popular music that was at a public arena. Because most of the musics were cultural and were contextual or context-based. Like for us in the Bukusu community, we have the circumcision songs. Those would only come once in a while, like once in a year. So my dad and most parents did not believe that that kind of music would have the capacity to destroy somebody's future forever, just in a span of a moment, So it wasn't that serious. And like you understand, music is dynamism. There were certain values that were maintained even when that kind of music was being practiced.
The cultural music.
The cultural music. There were so many the don'ts that we used to be told before you got to join the groups. But this other side of the popular, it appeared like it had no paradigms. Anybody would do what he wants to do, and a culture was developed, whether consciously or unconsciously. People found themselves doing certain things in a certain way that the society was not quite in agreement with.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah, so you would realize there were so many divorce cases. The divorce cases, there were no guitar. In fact, being a guitarist, you are already condemned. They will know that this one will not stay with the wife, because musicians of that time were regarded to be womanizers, for lack of a better word. So they would discourage even young girls from associating with that man. That man is lost. If they see you with a guitar, you are lost. You're already lost. Yeah.
So let's go now to your story. Go back to your story now.
Yes. So when I got to this church, this guy drew me closer and he told me, touch here, touch here. So after I made my guitar and my dad threw it away, I went and reported to my aunt. And my aunt was good. She spoke to me, she counseled me and said, I'll talk to your dad. So actually she came and talked to my dad, but now my aunt confided in me and said, now what you do, make sure that you do it, but not in his face. So I had to look for a way. I used to sneak from school. During that time we used to have like the last lesson to 4. From 3:20 to 4 used to be PE, physical education, which was never taught. So I used to take that particular time and sneak to again learn this guitar from another friend's place. Then at 4 I join other pupils. Then we go home. Having wiped my mouth, look like I'm really from school. But that is where I learned the basic knowledge about how to hold the guitar, basic fingering, and even these guys did not know the theory behind the guitar. They were just saying touch here, move here, and so on. So I also never knew what I was doing, but somehow through this the guitar began working. That was around 1986. Yes. Yeah, so from there I happened to do music in primary school. And still, our teachers that time who were teaching us music theory did not seem to have even the know-how about guitar. I think that was just till the time when music literacy in this country was just trying to get established. So it had not really permeated in many institutions. So it was introduced, like I think in my school it was introduced in 1984 when the 844 system was first launched. So we had teachers who were like A, B, key A, C, key C, this and that, and the one you could just tell that they were also gambling. But I think the game changer came when I joined Form 1. At that time we had the high school, we had the O level and the A level.
Yes.
When I joined my secondary school, and which I'm proud of today, is called Kabiefe Secondary from Trans Nzoia, I started music in Form 2, because when we joined there was no music in that school. As a subject.
Yes, music as a subject.
Was not in that school.
I would assume you were singing.
Already.
You can't say there is no music.
Yeah, as a subject.
As a subject,
I get your point.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
There was no music as a subject.
Yes.
Then, while in Form 1, there was the son to our former principal who had just retired the previous year. Then I joined this year. Was called John Bosco Namwamba, who was a tutor at Eldoret Polytechnic. Okay. It is that guy who played guitar and I got mesmerized. I felt like giving up. And he said, young man, you have a talent, but you lack guidance. And I said, yes, actually I don't, because we were used to the guitar that had an improvised capo. Ile ya miti tu, you tie here and you begin moving. For the first time, I saw Bosco Namwamba playing guitar without a capo. To me, it was fantastic. It was magic. How do you do this? And he did a cover that came out like the original. And I was sick.
What song this was?
Yeah, he did Sina Makosa. Yeah, and I was sick for about a month. He just
You
said,
were sick?
I was sick. He just said, what can I play for you? I said, play what you can play. Then the guy just did this. Le, oh, oh, mama. unataka kuniua bure bwana. Now, as he came to the climax and then he discovered like I was dead. Then he just stopped there and said, "Hey!" So I asked him,
Death
"And
by
who are you?"
music.
Yeah, I was like, shall I ever manage to do this in life? And how do you do it? Then after he left, he said, "I'm going to Eldoret, I'll come over next weekend." Then we work out a program on how I will tutor you.
Yes.
After he left, the other Mamlukis came in, beginning to explain to me how Bosco himself got to play the guitar to that standard. They began lying to me that he went to Congo and he was a certain, they performed a certain sacrifice. He was taken into a certain hall. They covered with a certain, I don't know what, for 2 days. Then after that, he began playing the guitar. So if you want to play like him,
you
yes,
go to Congo.
you have to work out your way and get to Congo. You can imagine the
Who are these
situation.
Mamlukis? Are these your fellow colleagues, fellow students, or who
No,
are these?
were Bosco's friends.
Ah, okay.
Yes, from within Kabiefe Secondary School locality. So Bosco was educated, but he had friends at all social strata. So he would, even with the chokoras, Bosco will work with them. So they are the ones who are telling me these stories. And remember at that time with Kabiefe Secondary, despite being a mixed school, the rules were not quite strict. So you could just walk out like on a Saturday like this. You just walk out. You can go do whatever you want to do. We were bathing from the river. You know, we had all
Quite
the
an
freedom
experience, eh?
exactly to do whatever you wanted socially. Yes.
So now, how did you take this information that you had to figure out a way of going to Congo?
I got discouraged.
Uh-huh.
I really consulted widely from even the Adaji I met at home. Because Adaji never seemed to know that there is also a way you can play the guitar without a capo. So he was acculturated in the Omutibo style of the Luya, and he's among the precursors of that particular genre. But Bosco was a later musician who, despite being a Luya, was exposed. And he told me personally that he has really interacted with most Congolese musicians, like the Le Mangelepa in the early 70s, because he was not a young guy. So for him, he didn't start from home. He started from Nairobi.
Okay.
And it explains why his orientation of guitar was different from Adaji.
From Adaji.
Exactly. And being also a graduate,
Yes.
he had combined talent and knowledge.
Knowledge.
Yes. So it is from him that he began, that I learned that when you hold like this key A, the concept of chords was introduced to me by Bosco Namamba. He's now in the US, professor.
Okay. Now that you talked about talent, the place of talent
Yes.
in music. Maybe we could talk about that.
Yes.
What do you think talent is in music? How would you differentiate skill from talent?
Well, talent to me is an inborn ability or attribute. Okay? The ability which, when we ask you to do a certain thing, you have the ability to do it. But the skill comes in as the how. Okay? So even if you have the how and the person does not have the ability, it is in vain. You can't move. So there are people like even in football, there are people whose psychomotor orientation is very difficult. Even if you buy 100 balls and put them in their legs, they cannot kick the ball. But there are those who are born with this ability within them. Once you put there the ball, they just begin kicking. So that is my definition and how I can differentiate between the talent and the skill. So for me, it was already, and people who are talented, I can tell you for a fact, I'm one of them. Somebody who is talented can never be pushed to look for the instrument, cannot be pushed to look for the song, cannot be pushed.
It comes naturally.
Naturally, where you sit, you cannot be at peace. I can tell you, I used to walk for these kilometers going to look for this guitar without my parents knowing. Yeah, if it was about another person, I call it intrinsic motivation. You cannot be at peace. But I'm surprised in this present generation that somebody claims to be a musician. I have children who also want to be musicians, but I have a keyboard in the house, I have a guitar, I have other instruments, but they never touch. And then I ask, what kind of musicians do you people want to become? You don't sing, you don't do what you don't do. As old as I am now, I'm still practicing on the guitar. I'm still doing other instruments. So talent is fundamental. It is an attribute which, if it is absent, it does not matter what else we try to impart in somebody. Things will not move.
All right. So now let's move from you learning music from Bosco.
Yes.
And then being your own musician.
Absolutely.
Yes, developing your own identity as a musician.
Now, Bosco, we didn't meet quite oftenly because later on I discovered that Bosco was a genius. And when you invoke psychology about geniuses, geniuses have certain characteristics. They are impatient. They want to try 1,001 things at the same time. And most of the times they leave them incomplete. So I discovered that Bosco had so many projects and there was none that he pushed to the end. So he had a karate team. He was trying to invent a certain plane that does not use fuel. He was trying to come up with a Jiko before Jiko Coas came. So he would not keep his promise. I got frustrated. But you know, that is now 1 year past. Then music as a subject was introduced in my school. Then we were the first students to enroll for music at that time. Now I thank Mr. Ayoma, who had the theory of music and guitar. And he could strum a few chords. It is him who said, now Wekesa, I would like you to do this in your Form 4 examination.
Just a minute. When you talk about theory, you mean Western music theory?
Western music theory.
Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you. So it is him who said, now, this guitar is tuned to this scale. It is him who told me that this string is called this, this one this, this one this. This is a fret. I had no idea what a fret was.
But you were still playing music.
I was playing. I was even an icon. You know, among my contemporaries, they were saying, if you want music, look for Wekesa. And I could not even explain what I was doing, but I was respected at that time. Yes, it is from that time that I got to understand now the relationships, the theory behind playing of guitar, the tuning, the chord relationships. When you do this, it means this. When you don't do this, it means this. Now with Mr. Ayoma, and we came to meet with Bosco Namwamba when I was at the university. That was almost about 7 or so years later at KICC.
Okay.
So I had enrolled in non-classical guitar class, and Bosco himself had also enrolled in the same category. Now, for there is usually a category for students and for staff. So 9, 10L for university students, then M for lecturers.
So this is the Kenya Music Festival.
Kenya Music Festival, KICC.
And you're in what university at this time?
Maseno University.
Okay.
So we got into the amphitheater. Those of you who have been in Nairobi, KICC, we used to have like a small hall called the amphitheater. Now, as university students, we were lining up and we were adjudicated by a certain lady whose name I think I cannot remember now, but she was working with Cooperative Bank and was a daughter to one of the ambassadors in this country. So she was the one who adjudicated us. So immediately we finished. She finished with the university students. Then the category of the lecturers and tutors came. And the first guy to get on stage was Bosco. And after 7 years, I'm telling you.
Maybe you could clarify this. At this point, are you a student or a staff?
I'm a student.
You're a student enrolling in a category meant for staff.
For students.
Oh, for students.
Yes.
Okay.
But Bosco for staff.
Oh, for staff.
And we were performing all this from the same hall.
Oh, all right.
So after students, class is over, then staff come in.
Okay.
Yes. So it was after student them. And I was the last to perform in the category of the students. Bosco was the first in the category of the staff. I'm telling you, it was not easy. So I did a cover by Diblo Dibala.
Which song is this?
I did, what do you call it? It was called Okay Madam. Okay Madam, I don't know whether this guitar can bring it out well. I did something. Yes. Then he did a piece by Lokasa Yambongo, Excellent Sophia. Excellent Sophia, I love you.
Played for us.
He did rhythm guitar that was tuned in a different way from this.
Okay.
That guitar in the popular music language is called composé guitar.
Composé.
It was adapted from combo composé, the Congolese rhythm guitarist who introduced, like the D string, he puts it the thinner so that it gives you the upper octave, the upper D. Yeah, so it can't really come out here. Something like, so this would be giving us something else. So yeah, Bosco did that. So I was keen on the results in terms of marks, in as much as we were not in the same category.
Yes.
But when the adjudicator was to give her remarks and the results, I won in the category of the students with 89%, and the Bosco won in the category of the lecturers and tutors with 87%. Then after the results are out, we met outside the hall. I said, but do you remember? I said, yeah, I saw you. So he went and gave me 500 shillings. And you know, that was a lot of money. Around 1997, that was a lot of money.
What do you think, how do you think this particular experience now shaped your way forward? I mean, I would think it must have been quite meaningful, this particular experience, you being on the same stage with your mentor or your teacher.
Absolutely.
Someone you would consider, and even the results kind of showing that you may have done better than your teacher, and actually that approval from your teacher that, you know, I notice you and I see there is something going on. What do you think, how do you think that shaped you now as a musician going forward?
I can tell you for a fact, it is one of the best experiences that one can ever find him or herself in, because first of all, it asserts that you are doing the right thing. I felt like Bosco was there to assert that whatever he did to me was not in vain. And two, I felt I had also become of age. You know, I can now wrestle with other people in the field. If I may, I feel like I'm a Moran now. It's like I had been initiated into another level of music expertise as opposed to or compared to the time before I met Bosco. So greatly I felt I'm now among the musicians you can respect, you can count on, you can appreciate. You know, there are certain things, maybe this is a story for another time.
Yes.
The first time I took my choir on stage, you will not believe people laughed. But for me, I thought they were appreciating me for doing a good job because I had misinterpreted a set piece. But I was conducting and the whole, you know, people stood and clapped. I did not know, I had not got it right. So for the experience with the Bosco, KMF and whatnot, it gave me even more confidence and a motivation to press on to date. Yes.
So would you say now that that motivation is what may have shaped now the musician that you are?
And the resilience.
And the resilience.
Absolutely. Yes.
So now let's talk about what career came first. Is it the teaching career or the performing career?
Where I sit, it is both because I began learning guitar before I even decided that I want to become a teacher. So this was growing in, and the other one was also growing in. It's just by coincidence that when I got to campus, is when the idea of you must do one instrument in this field and another one here, or a major instrument and a minor instrument, and that by the end of the course, you should graduate as an expert in a certain instrument because the market outside there is expecting that you shall go and be able to teach another person how to play an instrument, how to sing, in other words, how to perform, and not just to come and talk about music. Yes.
Well, do you say that it is something that was imposed on you, or that's a personal philosophy that when you study music, then you're expected to go and teach it out and not just perform it? Because there are schools of thought that, you know, would consider a music education for, say, performance purposes. I will go to school and study music to become a music performer, and that is where it ends. And then someone else will go and study music education to go and become a teacher of music. So would you say that forms part of your own personal philosophy, that a music education should not just have the end results of performance, but also a teaching of others, or teaching music to others?
Thank you. I want to respond to this question this way. I happen to be a trained teacher, but I want to tell you that all of us are teachers. All of us are teachers. The only difference it comes in terms of the forum. Are you like teaching informally, formally, or non-formally? Because when you look at training, teaching in an African tradition, we don't necessarily sit in a formal class and begin to say 1, 2, 3. Even these performers are teachers. And I want to put to them without fear of contradiction that they are people who learn through this particular forum of performance.
Okay.
Yes. So that having been said, I want to say that for me, nothing was imposed to me. It is something that it had been prescribed. So it was like a round peg in a round hole. You just get there, then they say, perfectly. Yes, things were just fitting. For me, it was just like a round peg in a round hole. Things were just fixing and moving on. Exactly. Yeah. So let's not lie to one another. You don't have to be in Kabarak University, SMPA, for you to be a teacher. Even in these gigs, there are people who are going home having learned how that particular artist sings. They go and sleep on it. Tomorrow you'll find a track coming out having features like of that other artist. You find somebody doing a drum set. Another day you find almost a similar thing is coming out. How does this come about? Through informal and informal forms of learning. So you really don't have to go to pedagogy in music to be considered a for. Perhaps for purposes of career and the way the governments define professionalism, yes. But outside this, everybody's a teacher. We are teaching.
And especially musicians.
Especially musicians.
Okay.
Especially musicians. Yeah, people go to YouTube, people go where, people interact, people do what. They are exchanging ideas. Everybody next to you is a resource.
True.
Absolutely. Yes.
All right. So what I see coming out is a very Africanist kind of perspective in terms of where the position, the place of the musician or the role of the musician in an African society.
Yes.
That you are not just a symbol of entertainment. You're not just an entertainer.
No.
You are an entertainer, but you're also a teacher. You're a propagator of what the society considers as its values. So I think what I would take away from that is anyone who calls themselves a musician may not look at themselves as just a musician, as someone who maybe gets on stage and performs their own music, but as a teacher and someone who propagates the values of that specific society. And we'll get to this discussion more because as we were having an earlier discussion, what came out was the importance of connecting what one learns in the class and its immediate context or the society that you are going to practice in, because there need to be that link where what you learn as a student of music is very applicable to the society that you are living, and not just the society, the current reality, the current society that you're in. I think we can take a short break and we'll get back.